Hello again, welcome to the Mastercam course. In that lecture we're gonna talk about CNC Lathe progress. Okay, this is our homework actually. You're gonna see that that's kind of product. It is actually designed by using the SolidWorks. This is the turning operation actually. When we consider the turning operation, we're gonna use the roughing process and finishing process, and then we can also see the C-axis operations here. This is the milling C-axis. We can prefer to use the end mill tool. End mill tool actually with the 10 millimeter, and this is the figure 8 millimeter divided rev, and this is the cutting speed meter divided min. Okay, let's jump in the SolidWorks first. This is actually a SolidWorks part. It's designed like this one, and this is the revolve operation. And then we can also see the cut extrude and then mirror operation. That's it. After that we can turn to the Mastercam, and we can prefer to use the all types and double click our homework. And that's it. This is our product. Is everything fine? But when we consider this perspective, actually we're gonna create some geometry. But while we are creating our geometry, maybe we can be problem to see that's kind of actually pocket here. So that's why let me turn to the isometric perspective. When we turn to the isometric perspective, we can turn to the C plane as a right. Okay. According to this perspective, we can use the transform and rotate. We can select our model, and then we can rotate our model actually with that degree with the move options. And after that we can turn to the C plane top and then turn to the top view, so we can see this perspective here. Anyway, let me save my file. This is our file. This is actually homework 1, and then let me turn to the lathe and the default lathe. Okay, so after that actually we can also use the solid model, and then we can also create some wireframe. If you prefer to use the create your wireframe, you can use curve on edge options, or we can prefer to use turn profile options. So we can select our model and selection options, and then you're gonna see all that line is created automatically. After that we can select our solid model and use the right mouse button, and then we can hit the level options, and we can use the active level options, and then writing it 2 and hit the OK button. And then in the operation manager we can turn to the level options, and then we can reactivate this part. We can see that our solid model and the curve is created automatically. And after that, we can organize our stock. Let me turn to the line endpoint. I can prefer to use the vertical line. We can start from here to here, and this is actually minus 135. It can be minus 150, and the length can be actually maybe 50 millimeter. I don't know. Okay, that's enough to create your stock. We can turn to the properties and stock setup. This is the stock options. I can hit the properties and the make from 2-point options. We can start from here to here to create our stock. After that we can turn to the properties and use the margins options, and then we can add 3 millimeter for actually face toolpath. It can be seen here. Anyway, let me save my file again, and that's it. Let's focus on the right mouse button, lathe toolpaths, and then face toolpath. This is my roughing process. When we consider our presentation, this is the radius 0.8 millimeter and spindle speed actually. But when we consider actually our face toolpath, we need to use constant cutting speed. When we consider the constant cutting speed, it can be 120 meter divided by and mean. So if you use the constant cutting speed, you need to write your maximum spindle speed. It means that this is the constant cutting speed. It means that we can change our spindle speed. So I need to write maximum spindle speed here. It can be 3000 maybe. And then I can write my feed rate. This is my feed rate, millimeter and divided by rev. Okay. Like this one. Oops, sorry. Yeah, actually we also need to write our and the feed rate here. Let me write my and the feed rate here. It can be 0. And maybe like this one. For roughing process, it's okay. Okay, let me turn to the Mastercam. I can write like this. Okay, it's okay. We can turn to the face toolpath. It is calculated by the stock. We already create our stock. And then that's it. We can write and finishing process 0.1, 1 and the number of finished passes. And then actually, yeah, that's it. We can activate our roughing process with 1 millimeter roughing process and 0.1 millimeter for finishing process and hit the OK button. And then we created our face toolpath like this one. We can also activate the holder and rapid movement here and then hit the play button again like this one. This is the face toolpath. It's okay. After that, let me turn to here. So we can see the sum and that's kind of area here actually. And yeah, actually that's not so good to and the cut and that's area by using the roughing and the toolpath. Okay. And because of the tool and the geometry and the tool and the degree. So that's why I just wanna add some extra line here by turning to freeform actually. Okay, I'm gonna and keep that part easily. So actually, by the way, you can also add some extra line here. It can be 2 millimeter. We can also add extra line here like this one. It can be 15 millimeter. So we can turn to the stock setup and we can turn to the chuck properties and then we can turn to the parameters, and according to my parameters, this is the actually our chuck position. This is our reference point. Okay, but we can also organize our and Z position like this one. This is the 100 minus 137. Okay, this is my chuck position. And then actually, and we can recalculate our toolpath. This is chuck. Okay, so it's okay. So let me turn to the roughing process. Let toolpath and the roughing process. I can start from here. This one, and this one. Okay, that's enough. Otherwise, we can hit our chuck. Okay, we don't want that. After that, we can also use this one. It's a tool. Feed rate. This is the plunge feed rate. And we can also use constant RPM, constant spindle speed. So we can organize our spindle speed here. So that's why this one is not important, but we can write the same values here. And then we can turn to the roughing parameters. This is the stock to leave on the x-axis, stock to leave on the z-axis. And this is the depth of cut. It can be 1 millimeter. This is the lead in process and this is the lead out process. When we consider the plunge parameters, it can be off. And then we can calculate our toolpath. So when we calculate our toolpath, actually you can see that there is no any toolpath on this area. We can turn to the parameters and we can activate stock recognition, and then we can prefer to use these options, and then our toolpath is recalculated. So anyway, after that I can focus here to organize that area. To organize that area, actually I can use the modify options, and I can prefer to use the break line with, and maybe 3 mm is enough. I just need to hit that one to create this kind of line. Okay, so after that it's also possible to create line here by using the vertical options, and then we just need to select this one. Okay, we can create that kind of line here. After that we can also use the right mouse button, mill toolpath, and the roughing process. So we can start from here, here, and here. We can start from here, and then we're gonna reach at that point. And then let me select that kind of tool. This is the different degree actually, and the different geometry. This is my holder degree is, and the different from the previous one. I can write my feed rate. I prefer to use the constant and RPM. Okay, and then when we turn to here, this is the stock to leave X and stock to leave on the Z axis. This is the equal steps, and the depth of cut is a 1 mm. And then we can turn to the lead in process. When we turn to the lead in process, and this is the minus 90 degree and this is the minus 135, we can prefer to use maybe minus 100 or maybe 115. Okay, with 1 mm, and this is my exit position for with 1 mm. Okay, this is the lead in and lead out process. And then we can organize the plunge, and we can also activate this one to see our toolpath. Anyway, let's recalculate my toolpath. So that's it. Okay, all the roughing process is calculated. Okay, let's turn to the finishing process. Lathe toolpath and the finish toolpath. And we can start from with that chamfer. We can reach here, here to here. Okay, this is my final geometry. And we can hit here. And actually, which tool we can use? We can prefer to select the same tool, but we can also change our tool radius 0.4 mm, like this one. Okay, and then when we turn to the here, this is 0. Actually, we can also write our and the feed rate here. It can be 0.1. We can turn to here 0.1. Constant cutting speed. It can be like this one. So we need to write maximum spindle speed here. And then we can turn to the finish parameters. It can be 1 finish passes here. So just focus on the plunge parameters, activate this one, and then we can recalculate our toolpath. Actually, we can also turn back to here and change our tool for roughing process again. Okay, so we have two tools here. So this one can be on the 2, and we can prefer to use actually, and this one for finishing process, and this one for actually, this is the roughing process, this is another roughing process. Okay, but that must be finishing process. Actually, I prefer to use this one with tool number 3, maybe. Yeah, this is 3 here, finishing process with actually tool radius and 0.4 and 4, and this one, and this is the tool number 21. This is the 0.8 millimeter. Anyway, it's everything fine at that point. Okay, roughing and finishing process. Okay, let me turn to the levels and activate our and actually solid model, and then we can turn to the we can turn to the here and curve on edge options, and we can create some edge here and some edge here. Because of the chamfer, I prefer to use this edge, and then I can turn to the two plane, and then we can also turn to the right view, and then we can use the transform and project options and select this one and this one with and selection button, and then we can turn to the top view and 3D again. Okay, and we just need this line, actually this one and this one, and then I can turn to the wireframe and the trim. I can turn to the modify length with shorten and unselect the break options, and we can extend 6 millimeter for this part and this part, this part and this part, and that's okay. So after that, we can turn to the right mouse button, lathe operation, and then C-axis and face contour toolpath. So when we consider the face toolpath, I prefer to this one and this one, and hit the OK button. And then according to my perspective, we can create 10 millimeter end mill. Next button, 10 millimeter end mill. When we turn to the here, this is the feed rate, like this one, and cutting speed 125. That's it. We can turn to the linking parameters. It can be obsolete, obsolete, and obsolete. And obsolete, we can start from the 0, and then when we consider the depth position, it can be -20. And then we can turn to the cut parameters. Our compensation can be calculated by the computer. We can be on the right side. That's okay. And then we can turn to the here and activate this one. This is actually, and 2 millimeters is enough, and 1 millimeter and 1 passes for 0.1 millimeter for finishing process. I don't want to see any lead in and lead out process. We already extend our line, so we just need to recalculate it. Okay, my compensation is not okay right now. We can turn to the cut parameters, and then we can make them left side or the right side. Okay, that is depends on your geometry. When you click on the geometry, okay, we're gonna be on the left side for this line and this line, and then that's it. When we consider our simulation, you're gonna see that's kind of and C-axis operations. Anyway, let's turn to the here save my file, and turn to the solid verification. And then that's it. Yeah, it's okay. Thank you very much for listening to me. I really appreciated your interest. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask me. I am here to answer your question, and thank you very much and take care.